I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Yes or no? Did you ever take banned substances to enhance your cycling performance?
Yes.
I had no prior knowledge of the planned assault on Nancy Kerrigan.
I am deeply sorry for my irresponsible and selfish behavior I engaged in.
Welcome, everybody. It's Oops, the podcast. We hope you are well. We are on the eve of 4th of July, and I'm Francis, and he's Giulio Gallerati. As always, G, how are you?
Thanks for giving me the last name, dude. You gave yourself just the first name. You gave me the last name. What a kind.
You know, I like to think that I'm a little bit like Ellen. I can just go by my first name. I have, you do too. Like, we both have very distinct first names, but I've always only kind of been known as Francis.
Right.
Very few people need to clarify Francis Ellis.
Right.
And by the way, someone once explained this theory to me, like when I was in college, because we had a mix of friends, some of whom would be known by their first name and some of whom were known by their last name. And we were trying to figure out why that was the case. Why did certain people just become known by their first name and some became known by their last name? And we realized it's whichever of those two names is more unusual.
Right.
That's the one people gravitate towards.
That's very fair.
And my last name, Ellis, I think, is much more common than my first name, Francis. And so everyone calls me Francis. Whereas with you, I mean, boy, you've got two pretty uncommon names. But I would think that Giulio is much easier to say than Gallerati. So most people go with Giulio.
It's easy. Once you know the name, it's easier. But initially, It's actually harder for people to say it correctly.
Yeah.
But yeah, people even just call me G.
That's right. That's what I do.
Giulio,
You don't meet too many girls who go by their last name.
Yeah, that's true.
Would you say to a girl, like, "What up, Samson?" If her name's Laura Sampson? Like, you might say that if you're trying to flirt with her, you know,
Right.
in 8th grade.
Yeah,
or if she's like a super jock.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say either you're flirting with her or you're absolutely not flirting with her.
Yeah, maybe she's got Samson written on the back of her boathouse jacket, right? And she's got all these varsity letters sewn on, and she walks around with like ribbons in her hair so that she doesn't have to put them in later.
Dude, speaking of like high school, tell me if you had any situations like this, but I have a high school teacher that stood out to me as being very unusual. He was the photography teacher. His name was Mr. B. He had a long name, so we just called him Mr. B.
Cool.
And he was so bizarre. Like, he loved baseball. And I, at the time, loved baseball too. And I was like playing fantasy baseball and stuff. He was telling me all about Stratomatic baseball, how that was like the precursor to fantasy. We'd start talking about baseball, and he would get so excited. He'd go, "You know what?" He goes, "Go to the library and talk to Mr. Matthews about baseball." So in the middle of class, he would just send me to the library to talk to the librarian about baseball, who also loved baseball. But the librarian was not in on this. So I'd get there probably once a week, and I'd be like, "Oh man, the Orioles last night." And he'd be like, he was so unsure of what I was doing there. My photo teacher is such a fucking character, dude. He would just send me up there. It was so weird.
Why would he not want you to continue talking to him about baseball, but he cared so much that you continue to get your baseball fix that he would send you to a surrogate?
He would send me in the middle of class to the library to talk to the librarian about baseball. It was absolutely insane. I was like, this guy is so funny. And you look back on stuff like that and you're like, there's no way that was okay.
Uh-huh.
And I wonder if the faculty, you wonder what the faculty thought about the other faculty. In a way, the faculty is its own like high school clique.
Totally. Yeah. God, it's a great point. We, what was the pecking order? Like, did faculty tell each other how many students had asked them for college recommendation letters that year? Was that their currency? Was that the dick measuring contest among teachers, I wonder? Because that's like a pretty good way to know, if you're a popular teacher. If a bunch of kids ask you to write teacher recommendation letters for them, that would mean you're a pretty popular teacher, I think.
Totally. And I think also like there's an important distinction between like cool and like cool, but also respected.
Mm,
And
mhm.
that's the person who gets tapped for the recommendation, I feel.
Yes. Yeah. Firm but fair. Right. Because we had teachers who were pushovers who we just kind of pretended to like because we knew that we could take a 25-minute bathroom break to go get waffles at the cafeteria.
Exactly.
And by the way, dude, I had a math teacher that was like this, and we just sort of took advantage of her. And we would go to the bathroom, and our cafeteria had a waffle machine, and you could make your own waffles.
That's
And
crazy.
then it would have a bottle of like Ready Whip, and you could just put as much whipped cream on there as you wanted, and then drench it in maple syrup. And it was like 75 cents for a waffle. Dude, I would eat one of these waffles at like 10 a.m. By noon, I always wondered why I had such a hard time staying awake in high school. It's because I was guzzling whipped cream, syrup, and waffles at 10 a.m. What kind of 16-year-old can survive eating that shit? My blood sugar was just plummeting.
Dude, that is fucking great. That's so true. Also, it's like kind of, I was going to ask, I'm surprised they even charged you. You're like you have to make your own waffle. Like you're just dumping fucking waffle mix into a machine and they're charging you for that.
Yeah, totally.
Makes sense.
You had to pay for everything, but like lunch at our school was like $4.25.
Yeah, it's
They
amazing.
came out with this, man, they had this ridiculous local article in the newspaper that came out about how many pounds of lettuce our cafeteria went through in a week.
It's a lot.
And it was meant to highlight our cafeteria offered healthy food at lunch.
Right.
But it was complete bullshit because the lettuce was all like iceberg wedge shavings, and kids would pile their plates or their trays with iceberg wedge lettuce, and then they would eat their corn dog and their slice of pizza, and then they would typically drench the lettuce in ranch and then throw most of that out.
Right.
There was so much food waste
Wasteful.
and nobody would touch their salad. It's not like we had some answer to why we weren't the exception to high school cafeterias having unhealthy food.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Crazy, man. I don't know. Dude, I talked about how I got a ticket, right?
Recently?
Yeah. I talked about that.
You said you were going 50 and a 35.
Yeah. So dude, it's funny. The last time I was on a road trip, I got a ticket as well. And I was with a friend at the time, and he was like a younger friend. This guy, Eddie, he's a good guy, but it was really funny what happened. We get pulled over, and the officer kind of leans in, he's talking, and Eddie goes, "Hey man, you ever see the show True Detective?" And the guy goes, No, I haven't. He goes, "You kind of remind me of one of the guys in there." And the guy goes, "Oh, thanks." And then he goes, "Also, nice hat." And the guy goes, "Thanks." And then he walks back to his car. And as he walks back to his car, Eddie looks at me and he goes, "See what I did there?" And then we immediately got a ticket. Like, he thought he was being so slick, dude.
Thought he'd fixed it.
He thought he fixed it totally.
Nice hat. I mean,
I was like, dude, come on.
That. I've been pulled over once for speeding. I think I was going like 48 in a 35 or something. I wasn't bombing, but I was driving my parents' Prius. This was back in high school. I was on my way to play rehearsal, and I was wearing like a button-down shirt for some reason. And I know this is a white privilege painting that I'm putting together here, but there was no chance I was going to get a ticket.
Right.
No chance. The entire thing was so set up from every aspect for this guy to let me off with a warning, which is exactly what happened. And I know it's really douchey to talk about that, but I do think that there are ways to chances of getting a warning instead of a ticket.
And what are those?
1, be born a woman. 2, start crying. If you don't have access to either of those options, be polite, be forthcoming with, your license and your registration. Here's a question. Do you think it's better to say hello, officer, or hello, sir?
I don't know, but it's also funny that sir is short for officer.
Wait, I
Not
mean,
actually,
kind of,
like
but
just-
like Sir CER.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you could even go SER, like he's a knight. Sir Jamie, Sir Lannister.
Yeah, right. I think that either is acceptable. And
I guess I'm wondering, like, do you think that there are some cops that'll feel more buttered up because you're acknowledging their profession by saying, hello, officer? Or do you think that that's so formal that might take them out of what could potentially be a bonding, friendly exchange between the elderly cop who just wants to seem cool to the young, hip kid driving to play rehearsal in his parents' Prius?
I don't know. I think you bring up a good point. It's important to be respectful, but I think that also if you show that you're being scared and obedient, they're more likely to be good to you. Like, dude, I remember one time I jumped a turnstile. I was going to visit my girlfriend who went to RISD at the time, Rhode Island School of Design. I hopped the turnstile because I like had no money, and I was trying to save the extra $2, which is how sad is that?
Yes,
Anyway,
you were a criminal. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I get caught. I have marijuana in my pocket.
Oh, God.
And I'm like really scared that I'm going to get arrested. It's like the opposite of going to visit my girlfriend. Literally,
Yeah.
getting arrested is the opposite of that. So I was like shaking. I was like really fucking scared. And the cop goes, "Why are you shaking?" And I go, "I'm scared." And then they immediately let me go because I admitted that I was scared. Like they thought that like that was good enough punishment, me having to admit that I was afraid or something.
My heart just broke when you said that. I'm scared. I mean, what a simple kryptonite. Now, I'm sure that won't work for everybody.
Right.
I'm sure there are some cops that are like, you should be, spread your fucking legs.
Yeah.
But boy, yeah, appealing to someone's sense of humanity and acknowledging your true feelings. And I don't know, that's such an interesting way. What a great, it's worth a try. It's worth a try.
It's worth a try, man. I mean, dealing with the police is scary no matter what. So, good luck getting out of it if you can.
Yeah. Oof.
Well, dude, we got a good submission. Maybe we
Okay,
should.
let's check it out.
Okay, so first of all, thank you guys for sending your oopses to us. We love reading them; they're great.
Yeah.
So here we go. My sister-in-law was dog sitting in Chicago for a week while the family was on vacation abroad. This dog was super old and unfortunately ended up passing away while she was dog sitting.
Oh,
That's
boy.
the worst. She tried to contact the family, but as she knew, they didn't have any cell phone service and were unreachable for the week. So she called a vet in the city, and they said that she could bring the dog. They said that she could bring the dog in, and they would take care of it for her, cremate it or whatever they do to dogs. Because this was pre-Uber, she didn't have a car in the city with her. She had to get on public transportation, specifically the train, to get to the vet in the city. In order to get the dead dog there, she ended up putting it in a duffel bag to take on the train.
Oh, yeah.
While she was on the train, she noticed this guy suspiciously eyeing her in the bag. As the door opened at one of the stops, the guy suddenly sprinted out while grabbing the duffel bag out of her hands. He disappeared before she could even react. But also, what was she going to do anyways? He probably thought it was full of money, electronics, literally anything besides a dead dog. She had to explain to the vet and the owners of the dog how the dog not only died on her watch, but she got the remains stolen from her on the train. To me, the funniest part about this is just imagining the thief's disgust as he opened the bag with the dead dog. That's crazy, dude.
Yes. Now, I'm going to lay down our typical oops disclaimer, okay? I'm sorry that I have to do this. I've just been around the internet long enough. I am aware that this story might not be true, okay? I'm acknowledging that someone may just be sending this or have heard it, but this sounds eerily similar to the time that we heard about the
Kidney.
liver transplant surgery or the the bathtub of ice, that urban legend that every doctor denounced. I feel like I've almost heard a version of this story before, but let's, for the sake of entertainment and joy, let's just be newborn children with wool over our eyes and pretend like this is real. Dude, so many things that I have issue with. One, what kind of fucking family goes on a vacation to Europe knowing that their beloved dog of 14 or 15 years is on death's doorstep? How much of an asshole would you have to be like, well, he's only got probably a week left, maybe at most 2 months, but we don't need to be here when he dies. We're off to Paris. Good luck, child.
Yeah, I don't believe this story either, to be honest. There's a lot of things about it that seem suspicious. That being one of them. Like, who leaves their dog, like you said, on death row alone and just goes on vacation? People love their dogs.
Yes. Secondly, how would you handle this situation if it were true? If you're the dog sitter, what would you do?
Well, dude, this happened to me when we were in Italy when I was a little boy. I was like 8, and we were there for like 3 or 4 months. We were there for a while. And our friend Dave was dog sitting. He's one of my dad's kind of like co-workers at Wesleyan. He's like, Dave was watching the cat. While Dave was watching the cat died. And I then blamed Dave for killing. I was running around Italy screaming, Dave killed Smokey. Like, I was crying and wailing, and I blamed Dave. I still don't know what happened to the cat to this day. They said it got hit by a skateboard. That doesn't sound. Maybe it got eaten or disappeared or something because they wanted to soften the blow.
A skate park and somebody landed like a 360 flip coming off of a rail on it. Like, I can't. Or was it at the bottom of a hill that some longboarders were bombing?
Right, dude. I call bullshit on that. What's with all these like fucking lies of animal death stories, dude? I gotta ask my parents what really happened to the cat. Maybe they were afraid to tell me. Well, dude, I don't look what I would do, man, if that happened to me is I would have a panic attack.
Oh, that seems useful.
I would be, dude, I'd be so scared because how do they not blame you?
You hope that there's an acknowledgement that the dog was so close to dying that,
right.
It happened. And it's like, God, normally when you're dog sitting, if you were to miss feeding the dog a meal or forget to take it out to go to the bathroom, it wouldn't kill the dog, right? And those are kind of the only things that could really go wrong. It's mostly just negligence when you're dog sitting that means you've done a bad job.
Right.
Most families are not going to assume that they hired a dog sitter who, is a budding serial killer starting with mid-sized mammals who brought it into the bathtub and held its head underwater, singing it a gentle lullaby goodbye. I don't think that that's the assumption when the dog, is incontinent and bumping into doors because it's blind. So I guess you'd have a panic attack. Would you have the gumption to wrap it up in something and bring it to the vet, or would you bury it in a yard somewhere? Would you grab a shovel and put it to rest?
I would definitely bring it to the vet. First, I would call people who had dogs and find out what to do. But yeah, I would definitely doing a like DIY burial and filming it and sending it to the family. That's just like the way, like well-intentioned, but handling it completely wrong.
There's so many ways to go. Yeah, there's so many ways you could theoretically try to put it in a freezer to preserve it. For the family, are you gonna want the family to have a chance to say goodbye and let them bury it? You don't know if the family wants it cremated. This story said that the woman couldn't get in touch with the family, which another kind of seems like bullshit.
Big red flag, yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah, obviously your first recourse is to get in touch with the family, ask them what they think you should do. I think I could probably bury it if they wanted me to do that. I think I could probably dig a big hole and put the dog down there and say goodbye.
Dude, that's also a dick move on their part. Like you went from dog sitting to now doing like an excavation. Like
Dog sitting to archaeologists.
yeah, like literally. It'll take you like 2-3 hours of hard work to dig that fucking hole.
Coroner and archaeologist. Very different hats. Yeah, you need a big tip after that week. That's for sure. You need a big tip. But you could also run into a family that's like, well, you only had to look after a live dog for half the time. So after that, you were just watching our DVD collection. Dude, I had to cat sit once for Mrs. Zill. She was a neighbor. And I don't know, I was probably like 12, 13. Dude, she paid me $1 a day. I had to go over there and like feed the cats and like change the kitty litter and all this bullshit. And that they had 2 cats and it was for a week. And it was it was like a 10-minute walk for me to get to their house. By the end of the week, she paid me $7. She didn't even round up to 10.
Oy. Bro, that's the thing, man. When you get old people's like minds are not subject to inflation. Like they think it's still 1944 when they pay you for shit.
Well, dude, think about this. The minimum wage is like $15 now.
In New York.
When I was a kid, it was like $4.25. And everybody I knew made that.
Yeah.
That's just what you accepted for scooping ice cream all summer at, the fucking shack near the pool. Yeah.
Dude, totally.
That was a fair pay.
Yeah, I earned $6.75 at being the basketball court attendant one night a week.
Dude, I absolutely ran the scoreboard. I reffed youth soccer games.
Yeah.
The best job I ever had, I think I've told you this. One summer, I got a job working at the canoe and kayak rental place in Prouts, which is the really wealthy, old money enclave. It's kind of the Hamptons of Maine, out past Scarborough. And it really is. I mean, it's a lot of New York families and stuff. And there was this canoe and kayak rental place called the Nonsuch Oar and Paddle Club. I mean, even the name oozes old money. And we would have to take these kayaks and canoes off the shelves and bring them down to the beach so that families could go out for a little paddle. And I think I made like $11 an hour there, which seemed like an absolute windfall.
Shit ton, yeah.
But halfway through that summer, I befriended a lot of the really wealthy kids that were members of the families that came out there. And we would go to their screened-in porches at night and play beer pong. And it was my first real like initiation into teenage drinking, and it was so fun. And I would just spend the night at their massive houses and then go to be the working boy during the day. I was kind of like John B. in Outer Banks. You probably don't know that, but a lot of us do. And
what the fuck does that mean?
Well, you probably haven't watched that show. You've been busy like, killing dogs and shit.
Hilarious. Just like burn there, dude.
You're taking 500-mile detours to see caribou, and meanwhile, some of us have to work.
That is fucking great, dude.
No, but really quick. So I befriended these kids, and one day they brought me to. They had figured out that at the very fancy hotel, which was called the Black Point Inn, which was up on the bluff. It was a WASP stronghold. They figured out that every day at like 3 p.m. they put out a tea, which was serve yourself. And so you could make yourself tea, but it also had these finger sandwiches and little pastries and free food, basically. So we would walk in and we would just rifle through this thing. I mean, we would pillage the tea setup. And they had a grand piano, a Steinway grand piano in the sort of place near the tea. It was like this big, I don't know what you'd call it, hall kind of in between where like the bar area was and where the formal dining room was. And I one day asked some kind of like, some person who worked there if I could play the piano really quick. And they were like, yeah, I don't give a shit. And I sat down and I started playing, and I was playing for like 5 minutes. And a manager from the hotel came out and said, hey, you're pretty good. would you be interested in playing here 2 nights a week during cocktail hour? And I was like, oh, cool. Yeah. And he goes, great. We'll pay you $50 an hour.
Great.
And all of a sudden, dude, I went from making $11 an hour to adding, I would play for like 3 hours, 2 nights a week. And all of a sudden I was making $300 a week in addition to my full-time None Such Oar and Paddle Club thing. And dude, it felt like I'd won the fucking lottery.
That's great, dude.
Making $50 an hour seemed like more money than I could ever have imagined. I got a 5x raise for this other job, which was just for me to sit and play the piano. I had to wear like a blazer or whatever. And that was probably the best job for that stage of life that I ever had.
Yeah, dude, that's fantastic. Good to have a usable skill. Can
Yeah.
upcharge.
Hell yeah.
Very dope.
All right, well, why don't we wrap there, dude? I wanted to ask you about any crazy summer jobs that you ever had as a kid. Do you have any interesting ones that you want to share?
I mean, dude, I used to teach tennis, obviously, and
Yeah.
it's funny. Like, teaching tennis can be stressful if you don't have infrastructure. Like, I used to kind of like pick up these lessons. There are these women who lived in this town, and I looked online for nearby courts. I was like, all right, I'll meet you here, and we'll play. So we get to the courts, and there's no courts. They're like renovating. So now we have to like find a new court. So we literally drive around for like 30 minutes looking for courts. I was panicking, like it's just really stressful. And we finally get there, and in the middle of the lesson, the woman fucking breaks her ankle.
Oh my God.
And she starts screaming, ah! Obviously, I never hear from them again. But like, yeah, like having to teach tennis on your own, you need to invest in like a good ball hopper and like good. And I just like never did that. And because of that, I never got my like little side tennis business off the ground. But I also didn't give a fuck about it. So
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, that's tough, man. I've watched some private tennis lessons, and my heart just goes out to the instructors. I just think that is a thankless job.
It's a thankless job. You get a good hourly wage for it, but you earn it. You know, you really do. You can't take a break to text. You can't like.
No.
You're out there
standing
fucking-
all day, all that. You're in the sun. Yeah.
Yeah, it sucks.
Well, listen, everybody. Happy 4th of July. We will be back with you next week as ever. It's Oops the Podcast. Please send us anything you'd like to have us potentially look over to oopsthepodcast@gmail.com. Follow our Instagram. Follow our YouTube. We launch all of our episodes in full on our YouTube channel. He's not Julio with the J on Instagram. I'm Francis CC Ellis. Thanks so much. Happy 4th of July.
Yeah, thank you guys. And thank you for, joining me on this road trip. The next time you hear from me, I will have landed at my final destination if I'm still alive. So thank you guys for all your suggestions and stuff, and we will talk to you soon.
Hell yeah. Good luck.
If you like that video, check out our channel where we have way more videos. I just don't know how to do this. This is unbelievable. If you like that video, we have way more videos on our channel. Please like and subscribe. Turn on notifications if you want to know when there are new ones. But if not, check them out, and we appreciate it.
Oops.